My name is Vanessa Matthews, and I'm the Artistic Director of Seraka Dance Company. I am a dancer, a costumer, and general mastermind.
My name is Erin Engehard. I'm a core dancer with Seraka Dance Company. I'm a singer, and I make stained glass as a hobby. Basically, anything artistic and weird, I'm into it.
Hello, my name is Mallory Power, and I'm a principal dancer with Seraka Dance Company. I love lots of artistic pursuits. I paint, I sing, I make jewelry, and pretty much anything crafty, I'm there and I'm here for it.
My name is Susan Crocker. I'm a principal dancer, a costume designer, and a choreographer with Seraka Dance Company.
Hello, my name is Karen McBride, and I'm a technical director with Seraka Dance Company. I do a lot of our costuming. I also knit, I like to bake, and all kinds of crafty things as well.
I think since COVID came into reality, we had to put a very quick stop to what we were doing. Our province went into lockdown very quickly, and that meant that studios closed and performance venues closed, and we had to basically stop production on our anniversary show and all of the productions that we had planned for the year. So it really put a grinding halt into everything.
We had good intentions at the beginning of the lockdown to switch to Zoom and keep dancing.
Yeah.
But that quickly turned into doing Zoom and just keeping in touch and being social with each other because Zoom had challenges.
It turned into being gentle with ourselves.
Yes.
But also soaking up a lot of other dance perspectives and like material from teachers around the globe and like we were working on our own like dancing. We just weren't able to work together in the same room, and we weren't able to work like on our specific stuff, but we figured out a way. We adapted.
Yeah, I like that too, because a lot of the mentors or instructors or teachers that we would have wanted to work with but couldn't because of, you know, the distance to Europe or to southern US, that barrier was removed in COVID, which was really nice actually. I think that's a positive thing to come out of it. A little different to take a class in your living room with your pets and your children and everything running around, but it, like you said, gave us the opportunity to have a different perspective and to get new, fresh ideas into our repertoire. And so that when we stopped having our breakfast Zoom brunches instead of rehearsal practices, I think that lended itself really nicely to when we started to do work for this project. And it gave a lot of new voices and new perspectives and new ways of moving that we might not necessarily have done if we had proceeded through with our general practice plan. So I think that's positive.
Yeah, it is. It was really nice to get this project in our laps because when we were, I mean, it was great to be able to stay in contact socially and everything through Zoom, but once we got this project, it kind of gave us like this light at the end of the tunnel that we have something to work towards now. And now it was like, we really can't wait to get back into the studio when we're allowed because we have this shiny new thing to work on.
And it was a project that like made sense for the times, or felt like that's pretty much about how you've adapted to these times.
Yeah, it's relevant to the times. It's topical.
We've spent so many years in that space. We've watched it evolve from a blank room and no mirrors and no baseboards and no floor to being what it is now, and it's built up around us. And having been away from it for so long, going back with a plan to create something has really been invigorating and definitely like coming home.
I definitely really liked just the first day that we were back in the space, that we just took the time to just work. We didn't necessarily that first day that we were back in the studio. I think we'd been so deprived of practicing unison within ourselves as a group, or practicing any kind of cohesion with ourselves, that I remember the practice being near silent except for the backing tracks that were just there for timing, essentially. And we all just drilled for an hour and a half, did exercises and drills and our isolation patterns just to get back in the swing of things. And I felt really inspired by that.
And we didn't even really work on the project that first day back in the studio, but we all had these things that we had been working on throughout the pandemic when we were doing our online courses with various teachers and things, that when we came back, it was the same but different.
It was definitely like a recalibration.
Yeah.
And it was really, I thought it was powerful, but I also was really, I had a lot of coffee that day. So.
There were emotions.
There was some emotion.
And the first time we flocked and moved together again and actually danced together, it felt really good.
It did.
It's like I was feeding a bit of my soul that had been hungry.
Oh,
I'm always hungry.
I like snacks. It also gave us the opportunity to focus on creating dance films rather than just dance for stage. So it's given us a whole other perspective on how we create dances and another layer of interest we can add to the choreography, because the filming in itself is a layer of choreography. So.
The difference between choreographing a dance for stage versus choreographing for film, when you're doing it for stage, you need to think about the larger picture start to finish in running order, and you have to think about the transitions and how dancer X is going to get to position Y and what that looks like, all while keeping in the back of your mind what's happening on stage that's also visible. And you really only get one shot at it on stage on performance level. Whereas when you're choreographing for film, those details matter less. You can focus your efforts on, what overall vision or what overall image do I want my audience to see.
The story you want to tell and how you want to tell it, rather than the logistics. You get a logistical leg up on telling the story because you have the magic of film.
It gives you more medium to work with. Like if you're doing something on stage, the place you are is the stage, and it's not like, okay, follow us to the parking lot. Whereas on film, we can shoot in several different locations and make every part look very different if we want to.
We also have a lot more control over what we choose the audience to focus on through film. When we're on stage, everything is happening at once. Every dancer, even if we're doing something in unison, the audience member is most likely, they're all going to pick different people that they're focusing on.
Aaron's mom watches Aaron.
Yeah, exactly. But in film, you can, artistically, you can style it in such a way that you have the focus on one person while somebody else is blurred. Or, the way that you frame your shot, you can have different angles to view different dancers, and you have a lot more freedom there. So it's not better, it's not worse, but it's different and it's good.
I found filming and creating stuff with the filming is really exciting where it's so new and different, and I find it kind of revitalizes how I feel about making art.
It's really invigorating to do a new perspective. The same kind of thing happened when you go from making a dance to making a show, or making one piece to making a production, or doing a solo to a group. It's that extra layer of creativity that you get to explore.
Yeah.
Also takes away some of the butterflies on performance day.
It does.
We're relaxing, we're hanging out in between takes, we're laughing and warming up with our blankets and our jackets.
Eating Twizzlers.
And eating Twizzlers.
You get more than one shot.
We could say, that was dreadful. Can I just do that again?
Yeah. There's no way we could dance in the wind like we did and do it all perfectly in one take and not get flicked in the eye with a silk or have dogs run through the scene. You know? So yeah, it does, like, there's some reassurance there that you know that, like, it will come together because you have multiple chances to get the shots that you want. Mm-hmm. And hunting those shots is fun. Seeing you being like, no, I want it this way, and like, Alec, make it happen. Barry, make it happen. I want this.
I don't have an A-type personality. So this project is fundamentally a project that is sprung out of the ArtsNL, Art in the Time of COVID, under the dance portion or the dance component. So we were given funding to do this project. Thank you very much. And we came up with one of the pieces that we were going to do for our anniversary show, which is otherwise canceled. And we reworked it and to filmed dance instead of a performance dance. And then we also found a complementary piece of music, which is actually the original version of the same track, that led to a larger piece of work. And it's basically the filming of two dances made in these unprecedented times.
It was beautiful using patterns as our jumping off point for this whole project, because we had been dying to use that song for so long.
Only like 2 years.
Yeah, but like, it was, every time I heard it, I was like, oh, I can't wait to choreograph this. And it was going to be like the big new reveal of our new choreography in our anniversary show. So it was a meaningful song. It's definitely the contemporary belly dance type fusion that we've been moving towards for the past while. Definitely heavily influenced by a lot of our belly dance vocabulary.
I would certainly say it's not pure rock sharky or Middle Eastern dance in any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. Not that anything that we do is necessarily that style, but it's certainly the base of our movement vocabulary and where most of our initiation of pathways and things like that tend to come from, and key concepts tend to come from that repertoire. But I think certainly this project and patterns in particular really employs a lot of modern dance or contemporary dance, depending on your viewpoint of those genres. I don't think
it was definitely more exploratory than...
It was, yeah, it was definitely a more exploratory piece. Yeah. In the process of working, when we got back to the studio, because we're not all in the same bubble originally, we did agree to limit our contacts and become a bubble ourselves, so that our choreography and how we developed the piece and what we decided to do wasn't as impacted as some other works that we were considering, and we weren't restricted by that 2-meter distance all the time. Even though in actuality when we filmed we ended up being further apart, but the studio work and not worrying about the transfer of anything by using the props that we used or being in the studio or that sort of thing. So making that collective bubble, I think, was an important component of this.
We have a particularly unusable selection of things that we like to do, and not necessarily a formal kind of criteria of names that come out of belly dance. We do have ones for the typical movements, but a lot of the contemporary movements that we fuse into that tend to be our own mishmash creation.
I don't think that's unique to us,
no,
but it's certainly very fun to do.
It is certainly very fun to do, but something we do that's probably a bit more unique is we tend to give them ridiculous names. Descriptive names. So rather than saying 4 different things that mash together, we create a unit and we give it a name. So for example, in this one, my favorite is Batbesque, the Batman into an arabesque.
But I also, for this piece, what I think of is your hand and face fit through space.
Oh yes.
That describes it. Hand and face fit through space. You
hand, go to face, fit through the space.
You make a space, you fit through the space. And so you know, when Karen says hand and face fit through space, you know what to do.
Being a decade into dancing together, most of us, we have a significant repertoire of foolish names that we use for a variety of things that we can just pick and choose and modify. So the one that started as Batman is now Batman with an arabesque. So we have a Batbesque that we've put together.
It was funny for me being the newest baby Seraka dancer and coming in to learn all of this vocabulary that you guys had. I remember the first time that I danced with you in Unknown, you said, okay, now we do a peanut butter. And I was like, why isn't anybody talking about this? What's a peanut butter?
Why does everyone know what they're saying? Why is everyone else doing something that I don't know how to do?
I don't think she knows what that means, what she thinks it means. Confusing
Like,
that word.
guys, I have a question.
So with this piece, as with all of our works, we don't necessarily work as a traditional company with director or inputting choreography on a group of dancers. We very much work as a collaboration or a collective of dancers where we each have more or less equal input with some veto powers. And we kind of develop things together with input from everyone.
One might say a company.
A company of collaborators. So this piece is certainly no different in that regard.
As well, we have the first half of the dance, the original, which had a lot more improvisational movement, and then the remix, which had a lot more strict choreography, which is a nice contrast.
Yeah. It definitely went from being a choreographic score to a choreography. And I like that approach. That was something new that we tried.
Yeah.
Throughout these pieces, we created some chunks of choreography that we reflected through both of them as kind of like a tie. So we used some of the choreography in Pattern's original and the remix to kind of keep as a motif throughout and tie them together. We spent a bit more time on creative exercises this time. We really wanted to focus when we created these dances on a couple of words that motivated the choreography and use that to create the movement patterns. And we do that more informally when we do normal choreographies, but in this case we really put a focus on that and in how we built it.
One of the exercises that we did to create the original patterns was something that I adapted from a project that I was working with Lynn Panting on, whereby I think she called it Each One Teach One, whereby we went around in a circle and we added a gesture to the movement sequence. And then we did that a few times and ultimately became that in the original piece. And that was certainly something that we normally don't do. We normally work together and decidedly create something instead of each person saying, this is what I want here, and that being the decision that's made. So it was really nice to have more concrete input from people in that way.
We also made thing 3. So throughout this piece we had 3 things, thing 1, 2, and 3. Thing 1 kind of traveled through both pieces, but in thing 3 we made it in our more traditional manner. But we actually took a lot of time with that in revising it and then saying, does this reflect our words that we've said are important to us? And then saying, well, how can we make this movement more reflective of that word? And we took a lot more time in the editing there, and I think it really reflected in that being more what we want it to be at the end.
And that was made, I was on holidays, I was out of studio the day that you guys had created that. So coming in to see that and immediately being able to say, oh, that's breath, that's reach, that's grip, that's,
Force.
external force, and being able to identify those words just from that, I think it was like 20 seconds long piece of choreography. That was really like rewarding to watch.
We did a good job.
We did a good job.
We sat down and as a group we played both pieces and we kind of thought of what this music is kind of speaking to us. It reminded us of water or of being adrift, or, like there's certain imagery that came to us while we were listening to it, and that tends to influence how we choreograph.
And before we even sat down and did that, we also sat down and thought, all right, art in the time of COVID, what does that mean to us and what do we want to make these pieces kind of feel like? And with that idea in our mind, we then sat down and made that word map and tied those two ideas together almost with those feelings.
What came out to me listening to the song was like searching, and then we ended up talking about like connectedness and like longing for connection with people, which is very relevant to the times and ended up being a larger theme throughout.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that our thoughts on COVID, the Earth climate right now, kind of influenced what we heard in the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be said for a lot of different pieces, but this one was particularly poignant in that way because it was the first thing that we had worked on essentially this year.
Mm-hmm.
All
least
of the
collectively.
pieces, collectively, yeah. We had done a piece back in February for Sonder, but that work had started in 2019. So this was the first piece that we had actually put our brains together to formulate any ideas for.
We've also put together I Want to Dance with Somebody this year, but that was done separately. So when we created that piece of work, each person created their choreography independently, and there was one 4-second combination that we did together. But the rest of it was all separate. So this was the first time we got to work together as a group with this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
A word to describe this piece could be longing.
Mine was support.
Reunion.
Mm-hmm.
Weightlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Pull for me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Passion.
Passion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely love what we do, and it comes out through our dance.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Connection.
Yeah. I think connection is pretty correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Ties or roots or origin, because it was a lot about like, where is that connection coming from? Where is it connected? Where did it start and where is it ending? Where does it let go? Where does it join?
Yeah, we talked a lot about using the word tether, and we actually brought that into a more manifested reality instead of a conceptual one or an abstract one. We actually got a lot of silk.
An entire bolt of silk.
We don't have a problem.
So each dancer had 10 meters of white silk that was tied around the torso with really long reaching tethers to be used by the other dancers or by the external forces of the filming location. And that was like choreographing for an unknown dancer that we'd never met, which tried to strangle me on filming day.
Because it was windy.
It was windy.
It was windy.
50-kilometer wind or 70
kilometer
It
wind.
was.
It felt like
It was a
100.
gale.
It was a very different experience practicing with those silks in the studio than when we actually got out to the cliff with high wind.
It was actually more fun. It felt almost buoyant. Because in the studio, you had to lift them up yourself. You had to make them do things.
Mm-hmm.
But they were already doing things and you were working with them on the cliff, which I think was really quite fabulous to watch.
They were definitely more active on filming day.
Yeah.
We didn't have to bend down to get them or to actually physically grab the root of your tether.
Yeah, there was up there and you could reach for it.
Yeah.
Just pluck it out of the air.
You
Or it could just end up on your face.
yes, there's that. It was like, too, that you really had to, like, abandon everything you came up with or, like, what you thought you knew and just kind of go with it and let go and, you know, be uninhibited by it because the silk was going to do what the wind wanted it to do.
The improvisational style of that piece was definitely helpful because if we had strictly choreographed that, we wouldn't have been able to do it because the silk wouldn't be where we thought it was going to be.
With the original vision, we had an idea to have a really light colored or nude colored costuming into a dark colored costuming. And then with the duration of time we had, which was shorter given the time frame for the project, we couldn't find those components and budgetary restraints because we really wanted to have those long silk tethers, which costed us a bit more money to work with. we adjusted our costuming for it. And I think that actually worked out nicer in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Having the same cohesive dress for both pieces really tied it together, I think. Also with the wind and how the skirt of that dress rippled was really nice.
Beautiful.
In terms of the project movement base, I think that the original idea from when we first heard Patterns Remix years ago and wanted to use it to this project is very different. But I feel like we stuck pretty closely to what we had talked about in September when we were structuring the pieces and creating the score. I feel like that carried through really nicely. And I think it helps that we had a really in-depth discussion about everyone's opinions about it and what we wanted to get from the piece and what we heard from the music. And I feel like that discussion that we had was really, really important to the process.
I think highlighting those 3 words to focus on, and as we created things, we went back to how do these 3 words apply and what can we do here to make those 3 words highlighted in this movement sequence, really kept the focus on what we were planning to make. And I think it ended up being what we wanted it to be because we kept that focus there.
We would practice a combination that we'd made, say thing 2. And then we'd say, okay, let's try it again, but this time let's think about external force, or let's think about breath, or let's think about pushing and pulling. And just think about those things when we dance it again, and it changed it.
I especially love thing 3 with the Scottish pan.
The filming sequence that we had decided for the 3rd iteration of Thing 3, we had decided to do an element that involved the camera work, so that influenced how we danced the combination, and it changed every single time we ran it. So we had 2 of our videographers come into studio for rehearsals so that we could practice that rotation to keep our center spot on the camera as it went around. And that was a whole nother layer that came into play 2 rehearsals before we filmed.
Because we tried to do it without the camera, and it was very hard to cohesively turn at a rate and decide what that rate was going to be. So once we had the cameraman walking around us, by cameraman I mean my husband, walking around us, it was a lot easier to focus our turn and make that happen. But visually it's gorgeous as you watch the scenery go by.
It was really nice to be able to keep focus on the dancers and have the background be the movement instead of the dancers be the movement and the background be stationary, which is much more common.
My favorite thing was the setting that we chose. We had 2 different outdoor locations, and they were both absolutely stunning. Like, we're lucky to live here.
We had some good cliffs.
Yes.
Good ocean.
Yeah. Like ocean and cliffs, and especially with the silks and just the backdrop that we had is really special.
The weather behaved less, but
yeah,
it's still a beautiful place.
And good people that when you come across them, and several women in cultish looking outfits are dancing in the wind, that they're like, oh, let me get out of your way. Oh, sorry, you look beautiful. Keep doing the thing.
We're doing normal things.
We just huddled a cluster on the trail in our jackets, in our little ballet slippers with any semblance of heat.
Or no ballet
slippers.
slippers.
No ballet slippers.
Need new slippers.
I made a mistake. Filming day was cold.
Filming day was very cold.
We wanted to film at sunrise. We wanted Patterns original to be at sunrise. So we were like, all right, we're going to get up at 4 a.m. We're going to put on an unusual amount of makeup for 4 a.m. on a Saturday. And we're going to go and we're going to get there. And we're going to be there because we checked the times on the date and time when we knew when nautical twilight was, and we were doing it. And the weather was not having it. It was going to be overcast. It was going to be pissing rain.
And
so much rain.
So much rain. It was going to be soggy. It was the worst. So we were like, okay, let's adapt. Because the other day we have to film is going to be possibly snowing and -5.
It's not.
That's worse.
We decided that was worse. So we opted for afternoon filming. And we did some little film magic so that we could film Pattern's original in reverse. So it looks like the sun is coming up when it is in fact going down.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we get drier and less disheveled throughout the piece.
And we are not in fact getting drier while dancing outdoors. We are in fact getting wetter.
Hopeful. I do like how when we filmed Pattern's remix on the beamer there in Flat Rock, which is basically in the ocean, it was bright and sunny and had spots of clouds, but it wasn't gray or drizzle. And so when we went to the second filming location on the trailhead, the sun was starting to set, but it still had that nice brightness in the sky. But the end of the piece of original tied really closely with the beginning of the remix in terms of the weather. We went from bright and sunny into a rainbow area, which was beautiful, into more wind, into rain, into darker rain, into slop snow. And the sun was setting all of this while. Whereas when we do the editing, it starts in the slop snow and then goes forward to daylight.
So it's like a positive message about hope?
The moral of the story is we were bloody freezing by the time we were done.
So cold.
The moral of the story is that we will suffer for our art.
Greatly. Crew of man friends have been good throughout our years of Seraka. We've put them up to many tasks and they come and they do it and they have a good time and they're best pals. It's all great.
They also adapt.
With our dance work, so while we're in studio and we're creating and have our beautiful makeup and our hair and our silk tethers, our partners and our husbands and our spouses are behind the scenes. So Renee was holding the speaker close enough but just out of shot so that we could hear it. And Alec was helping with the shot list, and Barry was filming, and they kind of passed around the camera depending on who was better at taking the shot. And then we had Jared Reed of J Reed Studios come and document the recording process and also get some really beautiful shots and solo pieces. And so having that support around helped us get over the cliff when we had to climb down the edge of the rocks face, or carry our totes so that we had something to put our jackets in between filming takes. And having that extra support crew there was really nice. They would have done it for us anyway, I think. But having them there formally in that role was really, really nice and supportive.
Mm-hmm. They're good boys.
They are.
So we have a cast and crew of 10 that came together for the project.
Shout out to Swiss Chalet.
The official caterer of Pattern.
I do want to say thank you to ArtsNL for supporting this project through the Art in the Time of COVID Fund, and for allowing us to continue to make work during this time. And we hope you like our piece. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Yay. Bye. Okay.
All done. Oh, my foot is so asleep.